I grew up as a 32-year-old graphic designer with a mom named Grace, who meant the world to me. We were inseparable until Brian entered our lives 3 years ago. When they announced our family vacation to Florida this summer, I spent weeks dreaming about sun-soaked beaches and quality time reconnecting. Instead, I came home to an empty house and a hastily written note on the counter. My own mother had left without me. Before I tell you how I transformed this heartbreak into the adventure that changed everything, let me know where you are watching from and hit that like and subscribe button. Growing up, it was always just me and Grace. After my dad passed away when I was only 6, we forged an unbreakable bond built on shared grief and resilience. Those early years were tough financially, with Grace working 2, sometimes 3 jobs to keep our small apartment and make sure I never felt the sting of poverty. Despite her exhaustion, she never missed a school event or forgot to help with homework. Our Friday movie nights became sacred tradition, complete with homemade popcorn and blanket forts in the living room. Grace would often tell me, her eyes twinkling with maternal pride, "You are my rock. We are a team, kiddo. No matter what happens, we face it together." Those words became our family motto, carrying us through every hardship and celebration. When I got my first design internship during college, Grace framed my acceptance letter and hung it prominently in our hallway. She believed in my talents, even when I doubted myself, pushing me to pursue graphic design despite the uncertain career path. Everything changed. The summer Grace met Brian at the insurance office where she worked as an administrative assistant. She came home one evening unusually animated, talking about the new regional manager with the charming smile and quick wit. I was 29 at the time, living in my own apartment across town, but still coming over twice weekly for dinner and to help with house repairs. I wanted Grace to find happiness and encouraged her budding relationship, even agreeing to meet Brian for dinner just 3 weeks after they started dating. He seemed pleasant enough during that first meeting, asking thoughtful questions about my work and sharing stories about his own children, Lily and Jackson, from his previous marriage. At 14, Lily was a talented pianist with aspirations of attending Juilliard. 12-year-old Jackson was already showing promise as a baseball pitcher, with Brian coaching his Little League team every Saturday morning. I made genuine efforts to connect with them during family gatherings, bringing Lily music magazines and attending one of Jackson's games, but they remained politely distant. After only 8 months of dating, Grace announced their engagement. The wedding was a small affair, just 30 guests at a local garden venue. I noticed how Grace seemed swept up in the excitement, her practical nature temporarily suspended in the whirlwind romance. When they purchased a new 4-bedroom house in the suburbs, I helped them move, ignoring the twinge of sadness at seeing Grace pack up our family home of 20 years. The changes started gradually. Sunday, brunches at our favorite diner dwindled from weekly traditions to occasional occurrences before disappearing completely. When I called to make plans, Grace would apologize profusely but explain that Brian had already scheduled family activities. That word family began to take on a new meaning, one that increasingly seemed to exclude me. During holiday gatherings, Brian would subtly redirect conversations away from shared memories between Grace and me, instead focusing on creating new traditions with Lily and Jackson. Grace appeared torn, often giving me apologetic glances across the dinner table but rarely intervening. When I brought up my concerns during a rare moment alone, she insisted I was imagining things and urged me to try harder with Brian and the kids. That is why I suggested the vacation. After 2 tense years of navigating this new family structure, I thought a week away together might help rebuild bridges. When I pitched the idea of a Florida beach trip during Easter dinner, everyone seemed genuinely enthusiastic. Grace clapped her hands together and exclaimed, "That would be wonderful." We have not had a proper family vacation in years. For the next 3 months, I threw myself into planning the perfect trip. I researched beachfront rental homes that would accommodate everyone, comfortably created spreadsheets comparing flight options, and even designed a shared digital folder with activities ranging from dolphin watching tours to restaurant recommendations. I contributed $3,000 to the vacation fund, nearly a third of my savings, believing this investment in family harmony would be worthwhile. I took 2 weeks off from my freelance design projects, turning down a lucrative branding opportunity that conflicted with our travel dates. When clients asked about my availability, I proudly explained I would be unavailable due to an important family vacation. The anticipation of reconnecting with Grace, and perhaps finally bonding with my step-family, kept me going through stressful deadlines and late-night work sessions. The first indication that something was amiss came 4 weeks before our departure date. I stopped by the house to drop off printed copies of our itinerary and overheard Brian and Grace speaking in hushed tones in the kitchen. Their conversation abruptly halted when I entered, replaced by overly bright smiles and vague comments about looking forward to the trip. When I asked about the airline confirmation emails that should have arrived, Grace assured me Brian was handling all the travel arrangements. A week later, I called to confirm our departure time so I could book a rideshare to their house. Brian answered his tone dismissive as he explained they were still finalizing details and would let me know soon. When I pressed for specifics, he handed the phone to Grace, who sounded distracted, and promised to call back with information. That call never came. 2 days before our scheduled departure, I drove to their house determined to get straight answers. Grace seemed flustered by my unexpected visit but assured me everything was on track. When I asked to see the finalized itinerary, she claimed Brian had it at work. Accepting her explanation despite my growing unease, I left after extracting a promise that she would text me the flight details that evening. The text I received simply stated, "Everything is set for Saturday morning. Brian will call you tomorrow with pickup time." I came home early from a client meeting that Friday, planning to finish packing and get a good night's sleep before our early departure. The moment I opened my apartment door, my phone chimed with a text notification. It was from Grace. "Had to leave early due to a last-minute deal. Miscommunication with Brian about telling you. So sorry, honey. We'll call when we land. Money for your ticket, refund on the way." The message felt like a physical blow, leaving me breathless and confused. I immediately called Grace, then Brian, then Grace again. All calls went straight to voicemail. In a daze, I drove to their house only to find it dark and locked the driveway empty of cars. Through the side window, I could see the kitchen counter where a handwritten note lay next to an envelope. Using the emergency key Grace had given me years ago, I entered and read the note, which essentially repeated the text, but with an added postscript. "We will make it up to you when we get back." Brian found this amazing deal, but it was for 4 people only. The envelope contained $800 in cash, far less than the $3,000 I had contributed. My hands trembling with shock and mounting anger, I pulled out my phone and opened social media, where my suspicions were confirmed in devastating fashion. Lily had already posted a beach selfie, with the caption, "Surprise early vacation with the fam. Best dad ever for making this happen." Grace and Jackson were visible in the background, smiling widely as they unpacked beach chairs. The timestamp showed the photo had been posted 3 hours earlier, meaning they must have left shortly after I had gone to my client meeting that morning. As I scrolled through comments, I discovered this was no last-minute arrangement. Friends of Lily had responded with messages like, "So excited you got your wish to leave early and have fun on your family. Only trip." Each word felt like another betrayal, confirming this exclusion had been planned well in advance. In a state of numb disbelief, I opened our shared family calendar on my phone, scrolling back through previous weeks. There it was, hidden in plain sight, a calendar event marked Florida trip, created 3 weeks ago with a note specifying 4 tickets purchased. The evidence of premeditation cut deeper than the exclusion itself. Returning to my apartment, I compulsively searched for more information, needing to understand how this had happened. An email account Grace had once set up on my laptop for printing documents remained logged in, and against my better judgment, I checked her inbox. What I found shattered any remaining doubt. 6 weeks earlier, Brian had written, "I think we should make this a real family vacation. Just us 4. The boy is old enough to understand." Grace had initially protested, but we already promised. He has been so excited, and put in money too. Yet Brian persisted over several exchanges, gradually wearing down her resistance with arguments about how this would be their first proper vacation as a new family unit. The final message from Grace read, "I guess you are right. I will figure out how to tell him." Except she never did. Instead, they orchestrated an elaborate deception, waiting until the last possible moment to inform me of my exclusion, making it impossible for me to protest or make alternative arrangements. The calculated nature of their actions transformed my shock into something darker and more painful. That evening, as I sat alone in my apartment surrounded by half-packed luggage, Lily posted another photo, the four of them at a fancy beachfront restaurant raising glasses in a toast. Jackson had commented, "Best family vacation ever. No outsiders, lol." The casual cruelty of a 12-year-old felt somehow more honest than the adult deception. For 3 days, I barely functioned, alternating between rage-profound sadness and humiliating self-pity. Friends texted asking about the vacation I had mentioned so enthusiastically, forcing me to either lie or admit the embarrassing truth that my own family had abandoned me. I chose silence instead, withdrawing from social interactions and calling in sick to client meetings. On the 4th day, Grace finally called. I answered immediately, heart racing with a complex mix of hurt and hope. Her voice sounded artificially bright as she described their beachfront hotel and the wonderful weather. When I remained silent, she finally addressed the situation with a breezy, "I know this was disappointing, sweetie, but Brian found this package that saved us so much money. We will plan something with you another time." No real apology. No acknowledgement of the deception. Just as I began expressing my feelings of betrayal, Brian took the phone. His tone condescending, he explained, "You are overreacting. Adults understand that plans change. We are actually extending the trip another week since we are having such a great time. You should use this time to do something productive instead of moping." That night became my lowest point. Alone in my apartment, surrounded by constant social media updates of their extended family adventure, I cried until no more tears would come. The relationship with my mother, the one person who had been my constant support, felt irreparably damaged. The promise we had made to face everything together had been broken in the most painful way possible. I woke up the next morning to sunlight streaming through my blinds, having forgotten to close them during my emotional collapse the night before. Something had shifted inside me during those dark hours. The heaviness remained, but alongside it grew a spark of defiance. Why was I sitting alone in my apartment while they enjoyed their exclusive family vacation? The question burned through my remaining lethargy. Checking my bank account, I confirmed that apart from the money spent on their vacation, I still had enough savings for my own adventure. For years I had dreamed of visiting the Grand Canyon, a trip always deferred for various reasons. With sudden clarity, I realized nothing was stopping me from going right now. The thought alone sent a rush of adrenaline through my body, replacing despair with purpose. Within hours, I had booked a flight to Arizona, leaving the following morning, reserved a rental car, and found 3 moderately priced hotels along a route that would take me from Phoenix to the south rim of the Grand Canyon, with stops at Sedona and Flagstaff. I packed with methodical efficiency, deliberately choosing clothes I normally would not wear as if physically representing the new identity I was claiming. For the first time in my adult life, I made plans without considering anyone else's preferences or needs. The freedom felt simultaneously terrifying and exhilarating. That night I slept soundly for the first time since discovering their deception, my dreams filled with open roads and vast horizons, rather than family betrayals. The moment my plane touched down in Phoenix, a weight lifted from my shoulders. Nobody here knew me as Grace's forgotten son or Brian's unwanted stepchild. I was simply a traveler, anonymous and self-determined. The desert heat enveloped me as I collected my rental car, a silver compact that would become my trusted companion for the next week. With the windows down and music playing, I headed north toward Sedona, stopping whenever something caught my eye rather than adhering to a rigid schedule. My first night in Sedona, I sat alone on the balcony of a rustic hotel room, watching the famous red rocks change colors with the setting sunday. An older couple at the neighboring table noticed me dining alone and invited me to join them. Tom and Diana from Michigan were celebrating their 40th anniversary with a cross-country road trip. Their easy conversation and genuine interest in my journey made me realize how long it had been since I had connected meaningfully with new people. The next morning, following their recommendation, I hiked the Bell Rock Trail, challenging my desk job-conditioned body in ways that left me pleasantly exhausted. At the summit, I encountered Marco, a professional photographer who offered to take my picture with the stunning landscape behind me. We ended up hiking back together with Marco, sharing invaluable tips about capturing the unique light of the Southwest. When he learned I was a graphic designer headed to the Grand Canyon, he insisted on exchanging contact information, mentioning potential collaboration on a travel publication. In Flagstaff, I discovered a vibrant college town atmosphere that reminded me of my own university days before family obligations and routine had narrowed my world. At a local brewpub, I struck up a conversation with the bartender about my impromptu trip. By closing time, I had been adopted by a group of graduate students and professors who invited me to join their astronomy observation party later that night. Under the remarkably clear Arizona sky, peering through their powerful telescope at Jupiter's moons, I felt a profound sense of perspective that made my family troubles seem suddenly smaller. The first glimpse of the Grand Canyon the following day literally stopped me in my tracks. No photograph had prepared me for the overwhelming scale and beauty of this natural wonder. I stood motionless at the rim, aware of tears streaming down my face, but feeling no embarrassment about this emotional response. Nearby visitors nodded in understanding, many experiencing the same powerful reaction to their first canyon view. I spent 3 full days exploring different viewpoints, hiking partway down Bright Angel Trail, and capturing hundreds of photos with techniques Marco had taught me. During a guided geology walk, I met Sophia, a marine biologist from Seattle traveling solo after a difficult breakup. We connected instantly over our shared experience of using travel as healing and spent the evening sharing stories over dinner at the historic El Tovar Hotel. On my 5th day in Arizona, while watching sunrise from Yavapai Point, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. It was my friend Kyle from back home, calling from his wife's phone after his battery died. His voice tense with concern, he explained that Grace had called him looking for me, claiming there was a family emergency and she could not reach me. When pressed for details, Kyle admitted Grace had been vague, only saying she needed to speak with me immediately. My first instinct was to cut my trip short and rush back the old pattern of prioritizing family needs, asserting itself automatically. But as I gazed across the ancient canyon carved by millions of years of persistent water flow, something crystallized within me. If there were a genuine emergency, Grace would have provided details. This had the familiar feel of emotional manipulation, an attempt to reassert control now that I had broken from the expected script of hurt compliance. Instead of booking a return flight, I texted Grace directly, "I am safe and well. Currently unavailable. Will contact you when I return from my trip in 5 days. If this is a true emergency involving hospitalization or worse, please have the hospital contact me directly." Then I turned my phone to airplane mode and continued with my planned hike. That evening, I checked my messages to find multiple texts and voicemails from both Grace and Brian escalating in urgency and emotion. The emergency, it turned out, was that they had returned home early from their extended vacation due to a minor sunburn. Jackson had suffered only to find me not answering my door or phone. The real issue became clear in Brian's final message. "Your mother is worried sick. Your selfish disappearing act has ruined the end of our family vacation. You need to grow up and start thinking about others." For the first time, I saw the pattern with complete clarity. My feelings and needs had always been secondary, my role in the family conditional upon accommodating everyone else while expecting nothing in return. Instead of the familiar guilt, I felt a surprising sense of calm resolve. I composed a lengthy email to Grace, expressing everything I had never dared say about how her relationship with Brian had affected me, our relationship, and my sense of belonging. I concluded by explaining I would be returning as planned, but would be moving into a new apartment immediately, one I had actually secured before leaving for Arizona. To ensure my message could not be misinterpreted or dismissed, I ended the email with, "I love you, Mom, but I can no longer be the only one investing in our relationship. When I return, I would like to meet one-on-one to discuss whether we can build something new and healthier between us. Brian and his children are your family now, and I accept that. But I am creating a life that honors my worth with or without a place in that family unit." Then, rather than hiding my adventure as something shameful, I posted a spectacular sunset photo from the canyon rim on social media with the simple caption, "Sometimes the journey you do not plan becomes exactly the one you need." The immediate flood of positive responses and questions about my surprise trip confirmed what I had begun to suspect: my value existed completely independent of my family's recognition. When I returned home 10 days after the original vacation betrayal, I drove straight to my new apartment. The property manager, impressed by my online rental application and digital payments submitted from Arizona, had arranged for the keys to be available upon my arrival. The space was smaller than my previous apartment, but entirely mine, free from associations with family visits or memories of post-betrayal grieving. 3 days later, after settling in and returning to work, I met Grace at a neutral coffee shop halfway between our homes. She arrived looking simultaneously angry and concerned, launching into questions about my unexpected trip before even ordering her drink. I calmly suggested we sit down, first maintaining the newfound inner composure that had become my souvenir from the Grand Canyon. Our conversation was both painful and productive. I explained how their actions had made me feel without accusation or blame, simply stating my experience. When Grace attempted to minimize what had happened or shift responsibility, I gently but firmly redirected to the core issue: trust had been broken, not through the vacation itself, but through the deception surrounding it. By the end of our 2-hour talk, Grace had moved from defensive justification to genuine tears of recognition. She admitted feeling torn between her husband and son, but acknowledged she had made choices that damaged our relationship. When she asked how to fix things, I explained that restoration would take time and consistent effort from both of us, beginning with honest communication and respect for boundaries. Over the subsequent months, Grace and I rebuilt our connection through weekly lunch dates, strictly between just us two. Our relationship transformed into something different from before, less enmeshed, but ultimately healthier. I maintained minimal polite contact with Brian and his children during required family gatherings, but no longer sought their approval or inclusion. The most unexpected outcome was how my horizon expanded beyond family dynamics. The connections made during my impromptu journey evolved into meaningful friendships and professional opportunities. Marco, the photographer from Sedona, followed through on his collaboration offer, leading to a side business designing high-end photo books that eventually became my primary career focus. Sophia from the Grand Canyon visited during her conference in our city, introducing me to her network of science communicators who needed visualization design work. 1 year after the vacation incident, I found myself planning another trip to the Southwest, this time as leader of a small photography workshop organized through my new business. The betrayal that once seemed world-shattering had become merely the catalyst for building a richer, more authentic life. I had discovered that family connection, while important, was just one component of a fulfilling existence. Grace and I continue our weekly lunches, our relationship now based on mutual respect rather than obligation or dependency. She recently confided that my boundary setting had inspired her to establish healthier patterns in her marriage as well. Brian, recognizing her renewed confidence, has shown grudging respect for our reconstructed mother-son relationship, though we will never be close. The most valuable lesson from this painful experience was learning that sometimes the greatest act of love is not blind loyalty, but honest self-advocacy. By refusing to accept scraps of affection or conditional belonging, I created space for genuine connection based on mutual choice rather than obligation. The pain of exclusion forced me to expand my definition of family beyond blood relations to include the community of friends and colleagues who value me unconditionally. Looking back, I can honestly say I am grateful for that painful note left on the kitchen counter. Without it, I might never have discovered the Grand Canyon, both the magnificent natural formation and the expansive internal landscape it revealed within me. Sometimes the journey you least expect becomes the one that leads you exactly where you need to be. Have you ever had an experience where initial rejection or betrayal eventually led to something unexpectedly positive in your life? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this journey of turning pain into opportunity resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more real-life experiences. Do not forget to share with someone who might need to hear that sometimes being left behind is actually the first step toward moving forward. Thank you for joining me on this adventure. And remember, the most important travel companion you will ever have is your own self-worth.